Welcome to the Personalized Learning, Individual Learning Path, and Growth Mindset content video. In this video, we're going to take a look at how individual learning paths and growth mindsets work in a personalized learning environment. This video will provide you with information to understand a student's individual path involves co-planning between the learner and the teacher. Recognize that personalized learning is a shift from a binary pass-fail system to a spectrum of developing mastery and yet moments. And generate ideas for creating an individual learning path that will work in your class. In a personalized learning environment, educators and learners work together to elevate student voice. Students' individual differences, strengths, and interests are assets used to create an individual path of learning. An individual learning path is a continuum of learning that encompasses a student's entire academic career and leads to post-schooling destinations. For each student you teach, a segment of their learning path passes through your classroom. Many teachers ask, does an individual path of learning for each student mean that they don't have to take a class they don't want and only work on assignments they select? The simple answer is no. Students do not get to pick and choose what they learn. All students are responsible for meeting all course requirements and content standards. An individual learning path is a space for students and teachers to co-plan learning activities. Students should have some flexibility in how they demonstrate learning, and students participate in required assessments, including teacher-created formative and summative assessments, as well as standardized testing. An individual learning path is individual. Each student moves through the curriculum at a pace that allows him or her to develop mastery. Each standard is met in the student's own time, which may be faster or slower than their peers. So if the idea of students at different places within the curriculum seems confusing or overwhelming, don't worry. The pacing component of individual learning paths can be incorporated as you and your school shift towards mastery learning. The other components of individual learning paths can become a part of your learning environment now, and individual pacing can be added in the future. Let's take a look at what individual learning paths can look like in a personalized learning environment. Keep in mind, this is one example. You'll decide what'll work best in your classroom. An individual learning path plan starts with the learning objectives. You'll want to share the learning objectives with students using language they can easily understand. Connect the learning objectives to students' lives by contextualizing what they will know and what they'll be able to do with their new knowledge. Next, you will select teaching activities. Delivering instruction to the students using a variety of teaching activities creates opportunities to personalize learning and provide students with the right amount of support they need to be successful. Examples of learning activities include whole group mini lessons, small group instruction, targeted instruction, individual instruction, and frequent formative assessments. Formative assessments provide data for both the teacher and the student to monitor progress on the learning objectives. In just a minute, we'll discuss how to keep students accountable for their learning. Now it's time to plan your learning activities. Incorporating choice in learning activities is a great way for students to start their learning paths. Some examples of learning activities include short videos or video segments, interactive learning activities, textbook selection, podcasts, knowledge builders, graphic organizers, and manipulatives. For some students, their individual learning paths for this set of learning objectives will end with the learning activities in your final assessment. But for other students, you've sparked their interest and they want to know more. Encourage their curiosity. You can co-plan goals, learning activities, and performance tasks so students can move along their path. You provide them with direction and they find their way. The The work students do on an individual learning path should be student-driven. They work with you to plan learning activities, but students do not rely on the teacher to provide learning tasks or instruction. You may help guide the student by answering questions, clarifying concepts, or helping them refine their ideas. On an individual learning path, the student becomes their own teacher. Students are held accountable for their learning through one-to-one conferences, collecting and tracking their own data, and frequent formative assessments. The extension activity for this cycle includes an accountability tracker for students. Students can keep track of their learning activities as they work towards mastery. When shifting to a personalized learning environment, pivot by degrees. Change can be overwhelming for you and your students, so take it slowly. Incorporate 1 or 2 ideas until you and your students feel like it's a natural part of your class. Your Tinker activity is to create an individual learning path plan. You will identify one set of learning objectives and build your teaching activities. As you develop your learning activities, try to find ways to give students choices. You can start with just a few and then add more as students complete learning tasks. To summarize individual learning paths, remember to start small. As you gain experience, you can add more activities to help students on their paths. Include student choice in learning activities. As students become comfortable with choosing learning activities, you can add more, or you can encourage students to choose how to demonstrate mastery of their learning through performance tasks or other experience-based learning projects. Finally, and most importantly, encourage curiosity. Challenge their thinking, get them to both ask and answer their own questions. Next, we're going to talk about mindsets and the benefits of fostering growth mindsets in your classroom. Change can be a challenge, but change is easier to manage when we believe in ourselves and our abilities. How we think about ourselves is our mindset. Fixed mindsets find that change is very difficult, while a growth mindset views change as an opportunity. Educators must model a growth mindset for our students and guide them as they develop an identity in which they see themselves as capable of learning, view failure as an opportunity, and accept feedback as a chance to grow. We can start to build growth mindsets in our students with one simple word: yet. Yet is empowering. Yet means that success and achievement are attainable. Yet becomes transformative. In a yet environment, thoughts like, I'm not good at this or I can't do this, transforms to an ethos of, I am able to learn this and I can do this. You will find Carol Dweck's TED Talk on the power of yet and the resources for this cycle. She shares her research into developing growth mindsets in students. You will discover many ideas that you can use in your classroom. Students who develop a growth mindset embrace the power of yet and explore their individual learning path, and they will find success.